Okay, the dough has been kneaded, and the kneading isn't absolutely necessary, but it does help the bread to develop a better structure and a chewiness. And the dough is now very webby. Your paddle attachment or your dough hook will you'll be able to see it be the dough be very stringy as it's wrapped around that tool. During kneading, the flour absorbs water, and it will continue to do that as it's rising. And once it's done rising, then you'll have a better sense of whether you need to add a little bit more flour or not. Now, at this point, it needs to be rested in a bowl that's been oiled so that it doesn't stick. And so what I do is I pull it closer, and then pull it into a ball, and then I take some just vegetable oil and pour it then in the back and let that roll around, and then I turn the dough, and it only takes a couple turns and it starts getting covered with oil, and now it won't stick to the bowl, so then I can cover that and let it rise. Now I'll recap the recipe for you. It's 3 cups of warm water, a tablespoon and a half of yeast, half a teaspoon of sugar minimum, and 2 tablespoons of kosher salt, then 6 to 6.5 cups of bread flour. At this point, I can sort of control the rise. If I want it to rise very fast, what I'll do is I'll put a cover on here and put it in basically a water bath in the sink. I'll fill up the sink with about 5 or 6 inches of bathwater, warm water, and just set the bowl in there, and that warmth helps that yeast to rise. The dough will rise in about 35 to 45 minutes using that technique. I can also slow it down if I need to go somewhere and I'm a little worried about how long I'll be gone. I can mix that up sort of in a different order. Instead of starting with water, sugar, yeast, and letting that proof, then adding the flour, I can put all the dry ingredients in the bowl and then add cold water, and that cold water slows things down. You'll still get a rise, it's just going to be slower. It's probably going to tack on up to a half an hour. And if I have plenty of time, I may just put the bowl covered on the counter. So in a water bath, it's going to take 35 to 45 minutes. On the counter, it's going to take an hour to an hour and 15 minutes. If you use the cold water technique, then it's going to probably take an hour and a half to an hour and 45 minutes. So you can control that. Now, I want to show you my oven setup. As your dough is rising, about 30 minutes before you expect the rise to be complete, you need to preheat your oven. My oven, I have a stone that I got that's quite large, but for years I used a pizza stone, just I think 12-inch or 14-inch pizza stone that I got from Pampered Chef. It's very well seasoned and I really loved it, but I couldn't bake all of the loaves that this recipe would make in one installment. So that's why I got the larger stone. You can use the small round one, you can use a large one, and if you don't have a pizza stone, you can instead use just a cookie sheet. If it has a rim around it, flip it over because you don't want the bread rising into that pan edge. So, and you may need to use 2 pans in your oven depending upon the shape and the size of your loaves. So I've got my pizza stone in there, and it's on the middle rack. Then you'll notice beneath it I have 2 pans of rocks. Those are lava rocks that you just get for the grill. I don't recommend necessarily going out and buying that, because for a long time I used just a disposable 9x13 pan that I got at the dollar store or the grocery store. And when that is all preheated with the pan in the bottom and your stone in the middle, it gets ripping hot. And then when you put the bread on the stone, it starts cooking immediately, but that pan, you put some water on it and it flashes up and creates, sort of mimics a steam oven. Artisan breads baked in the bakery, like at the grocery store, they have special steam injected ovens. Well, we don't have those for home use right now. I think JennAir might be coming out with one, but I'm sure it's going to be pretty expensive. And so this is a way you can sort of mock up a steam oven. It doesn't work exactly as well as the one at the bakery, but it does give you a little bit of a steam bath in your oven. So we're going to let our dough rise. I'll close the oven, and in about 30 minutes I will start preheating my oven, and we'll come back and we will shape the loaves, and I'll show you a couple little tricks to make your loaves look really pretty.